Welcome to Chamber Focus. This program is produced by Peters Township Chamber of Commerce. We're here to inform and educate the residents of Peters Township about businesses and services available to them right here in our community. I'm your host, Linda Vaira. Today we're going to help celebrate the 200th anniversary of a Washington County institution. So stay tuned, it's going to be a good show. We'll be right back. Today we're helping celebrate the 200th anniversary of an institution in Washington County, unbelievable, the Washington Observer Reporter newspaper. And our guest today, to my immediate left, is Park Burroughs. He is the editor of the Observer Reporter. And to his left is Tom Northrop, who is the publisher of the Observer. Well, the Northrop name is synonymous with Observer Reporter, for sure. Thank you both for taking time out of your busy day and coming to help celebrate your 200th anniversary. What a milestone. What a milestone. And, you know, during the show, too, we're going to go ahead and run photographs of, you know, some of the history you brought. It's going to be a really interesting piece of history here today. But we don't need to talk or narrate over them. We'll just, you know, as we're talking, they'll be showing them on the screen and whatnot. How are you celebrating this 200th anniversary? I mean, 200 years is a long time to be in business. What are you doing to celebrate?
Well, we had a long time to plan for it, too.
200 years? Yeah. You don't look that old.
We first started thinking about it about 5 years ago and really started working on the bicentennial edition and the research for it about 3 years ago. And everything started really cooking about maybe a year ago. And in addition to printing a special edition, which was 4 28-page sections on 4 consecutive days, we also had a party.
We had about 65 photos from our photographers only, and I think our first employed photographer didn't start until about 1948 or so, right after World War II, and we had pictures prior to that, but we used our staff photographers. Those pictures were at Washington and Jefferson College. Right now they're at Citizens Library in Washington, and later
the public can go.
The public can go and see them.
These historic photographs.
Yes.
Okay.
At Citizens Library until today.
Oh,
I think.
Okay.
But then it'll move to Washington Crown Center
following that.
Following that.
But can people go on your website and or whatnot and find out where the location of these photographs are? Yeah. So you're going to keep tracking that. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So we had a birthday cake and at all the departments, happy 200th anniversary, and you know, those types of things.
Yeah, yeah. How did the paper get started? Whose idea was it a Northrop idea? Is it always been a Northrop newspaper?
No, our family didn't purchase the paper until 1902, so it's only been in our family for 106 years. Oh. And William Brown and William Sample moved from Greensburg to Washington and started this newspaper, and basically it was William Sample, and William Brown may or may not have been the money man. But the history that we've known for a long time, up until Park did a lot of research, was that these two printers came from New Jersey, but it's not true. They came from Greensburg and ended up in Washington and set up shop at a tavern directly across the street, which now is the Union Grill, and it was called the Sign of the Swan.
Oh, so the Union Grill. And I'm sure a lot of people in Peters Township know the Down and Under,
the
Union Grill.
That's correct.
That's where we started.
That's where the newspaper started. Right. Very interesting.
Right. We actually have a video that a DVD that we produced for the bicentennial, and we could take a look at just the beginning of that. If that's okay.
Is that okay in the booth if we could plug that video in now?
The Observer Reporter, bringing the news to southwestern Pennsylvania since 1808. The area just west of the Monongahela River and south of the Ohio was once the very edge of the American frontier. Some of the first to arrive settled around what they called Catfish Camp. At the dawn of the 19th century, it had grown to nearly 1,000 souls and was then called Washington. As a new nation was born, so were many newspapers. On an August day in 1808, a Conestoga wagon, loaded with printing gear, rolled along the Pittsburgh Road into Washington. On board was a 21-year-old printer, William Sample, and his partner and brother-in-law, William Brown. They'd hoped to start a newspaper somewhere south of Pittsburgh, possibly in Waynesburg. They stopped for a night at a tavern and inn called the Sign of the Swan, and its owner convinced the two that Washington was a better choice and offered a room in his cellar to set up shop. And so, the Reporter was born. For 25 years, William Sample published his newspaper every Monday evening, providing the growing town with a voice of rebuttal against its Federalist rival.
William Sample, the founder of the Reporter, was a really remarkable man. He never went to school beyond the age of 12 years old and began his apprenticeship as a printer in Greensburg. And when that was done, worked for a couple of years in Pittsburgh before moving on to Washington and beginning the Reporter. He was only 21 years old at that time, yet he was remarkably intelligent, well-read, politically sophisticated. He went on to become one of Washington's most prominent and influential citizens. He had 14 children. His children were remarkable. He really had a large impact on this city and this area of the country. And it all began in the basement of a tavern.
During his time, the National Road was built and passed right by his printing shop. Businesses and homes began to sprout along the route, and famous people came through town, like the Revolutionary War hero General Lafayette and the great statesman Henry Clay. Sample became a great admirer and friend of Clay's and took up Clay's cause of anti-slavery. Sample was also a friend of local abolitionist Dr. Francis Lemoyne, whose children were playmates of some of Sample's 14 children. William Sample sold the Reporter in 1833 and later moved his family to Iowa. The newspaper changed hands several times over the next 25 years. As the newspaper entered its second half-century, one of its new owners would transform the little weekly into a daily paper and leave a human legacy through most of the 20th century. He was Enos Chrisman.
Thank you. Okay, I wasn't sure when that was going to end.
Yeah, we ended with Enos Chrisman, who established another dynasty at the newspaper. It was the Chrisman family that owned and operated the Reporter until it was purchased by Tom's great-grandfather.
Okay.
And in 1902. So it's been since then in the Northrop family.
Very interesting.
So my great-grandfather was an 1899 graduate of Washington and Jefferson, and I don't know where he got the money, but if you look at the minutes for the first meeting, sort of the who's who of Washington had shares of stock in the company, and he has the least amount of shares of pretty much anybody, but he was named general manager of the paper, and within 10 years he owned it outright. And we've grown to the point today that we have about 235 employees, and we have the Almanac in Peters, which is...
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Almanac because you published the Almanac, and the OR Observer Reporter is the only daily newspaper serving Washington and Greene counties.
That's correct.
Wow. That's... Have there been others that have fallen by the wayside? And
well, I'm not sure if we were the first newspaper in the county.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, if you were the first, because it didn't say that on the...
I'm not sure. I don't believe we were the first. But in the 1830s, there were 11 newspapers in the city of Washington. And some of them were weekly, some of them were monthly, some of them were bi-monthlies. And you have to remember that the old printing press and the technology, they would print 4 pages and put it up on a bulletin board outside the office in its strategic locations. There wasn't any home delivery to speak of. But they have since fallen by the wayside. The Observer, the Washington Observer, which was founded in 1871, that's the newspaper that my great-grandfather purchased. Okay. And then he bought that in 1902, and in 1903 he purchased the Washington Reporter.
Aha, so he put two newspapers together.
That's correct.
Okay, okay. Park, you're publishing a book about this information, I understand.
Right. We published the 4 consecutive editions on August 15th through 18th. And most of the information in the special editions will be included in this coffee table
Well, you
book.
have the book, if you want to put that right in front of you and the camera will catch it, maybe just put it right in front of you and hold it up so we can see it in the camera. There you go. This is up there. The camera's catching it now. This book is available, and it's about the 200 years of the Observer Reporter. So much of what we're seeing today is going to be published in this book, and you can order this.
You can order it online, or you
Okay.
can order it by phone by calling the newspaper at 1-800-222-NEWS.
1-800-222-NEWS. Even
Right.
I can remember that. Okay.
The book contains most of the information that we published in the special editions, but with many more photographs. There are over 300 photographs from our archives included in the book. These go back to the very earliest days of photography. Now, these weren't our staff photographers who took these photographs, but they were taken by photographers in this area and eventually donated
Yes.
to the newspaper. And they're now contained in a vault in our basement. And I'd been going into this vault for years and was just looking for the opportunity to share these photographs with our readers. You know, it's just such a valuable resource that was sitting down there in that vault and doing nothing. So now everyone has a chance to see 300 of these photos. Additionally, the DVD that we saw just the beginning of, it's about a 14-minute movie.
Okay.
That is included in the book as well.
The DVD is
Yes,
in the book?
the DVD is in
Oh,
the book.
what a nice thing to know.
Yeah,
So that if people buy the book from the Observer, they are also getting the history in DVD form.
that's right. That's
Very
correct.
nice, very useful. What is your circulation?
Well, Sunday we're about 34,000, and daily we are 32,000, which is a little bit less than we used to be, but that's sort of the reality of the newspaper
The
business.
newspaper business, I
That's
think, you know,
correct.
nationwide, but
That's
you know,
correct.
we still read a newspaper every day.
But if you look at, Park always makes the argument that if you, our readership is actually up because of the amount of people that look at the newspaper online and the different features that we have there. So more people technically are reading it. It's not as many are paying, but more people are reading it. So
On your website, though, do you sell advertising?
we do.
Okay, so
We
then
do.
that helps to pay for the newspaper and the
We do.
publishing and
We
whatnot.
do.
Well, we're about ready here to take a break. Can we go to break now? Is that okay? You gave me about did you just say a minute, honey? I'm sorry. I thought you hold up the minute. Is it okay if we go to break now? Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with this interview, this interesting interview with history.
Over 70,000 Americans, just like me, follow their passion to help get things done for America. To make our country safer, smarter, and healthier, I will take action. I'm an AmeriCorps member, and I'm getting things done.
You can get a physical exam now, or you can get one later. Use our free risk calculator and talk to your doctor. Lower your risk for type 2 diabetes and heart disease and live a healthier life.
If you've had a stroke, the chances are good that you could have another one. But it doesn't have to happen. You could be a stroke smart star.
I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising again.
I'm keeping my blood pressure and cholesterol levels under control.
After 35 years, I quit smoking.
I always take my medicine.
If you take steps to improve your health, you'll greatly reduce your risk of another stroke. Talk to your doctor and go to stroke.org today.
I'm not going to have another stroke.
You can eradicate polio. You can help children do better in school. Because you can get involved with Rotary. Because Rotary believes that by working together, you can do anything. Learn more at Rotary.org.
Hi, and welcome back. We're talking today to Mr. Thomas Northrop and Park Burroughs, who are associated with and owners of the Observer Reporter and the Almanac here in Peters Township. And it's very interesting because we're doing a lot of history today, and your book is wonderful. I think people would be very interested in knowing, even if it doesn't involve the history of the newspaper, the history of Washington. Just look at those dirt streets coming up between what we now call the dirt down and under, you know, the Union Grill. And that's where you had your start. I would like to talk to you a little bit about the Almanac, too, if we would, because we enjoy that paper, and we take it for granted, I think, that we have this local newspaper every week. You cover so much local news, and you said something cute. You can repeat what you said about Bill Gates during the break.
Well, the Almanac was started in the 60s. We purchased it in 1981, and primarily when the Almanac was started, it was a shopper, because apparently the ad director at the newspaper said, well, we don't want to, at the Observer Reporter said, we don't want to make our advertisers mad in Washington, so we won't accept advertisements from the peoples at from the advertisers and the businesses at Donaldson's Crossroads. Okay. So they started their own newspaper, so that was pretty smart. And so we bought it in 1981-ish, and it's, you know, we cover McMurray, Bethel Park, Peters, no, Peters and McMurray the same, Cannonsburg, lower southern Allegheny County, and you know, it's been a really great newspaper for us, and it offered us some protection against the Post-Gazette as well, because we have sort of a little buffer in between us and in between us and the Post.
Yeah, you do. How many people do you have on staff who go to, I mean, you know, every community has its own government, and you cover these. You cover all of them. How do you do this?
Well, the Almanac has an editorial staff of about 6 or 7 people. It's a weekly. At the Observer Reporter, we publish 2 editions daily, the Greene County edition and a Washington County edition.
I had no idea.
And we cover both of the counties. And so we have a staff of 45 full-time and 10 part-time people in our news department in Washington. Yeah. It's quite a large operation.
We also have stringers. If we can't get to a certain event, we can pay someone, you know, pay them $25, whatever the price is, either to go out and take a photo or cover an event that we might not be able to make it to. So
okay, very interesting. And then, you know, we like the local coverage. Now, do you have home delivery too, though, your Observer Reporter? So if anybody watching the show today would really like to become a subscriber to the Observer Reporter, they can have their paper delivered.
Absolutely, delivered to the home. You can pick it up at newsstands, but you know, you can have it delivered to your house, and if you do, it's a little bit cheaper than picking it up every day. And I just remembered you'd ask a story that, you know, one of the strengths that we have is our ability to cover the local news. And I've always used the story that, you know, Bill Gates doesn't have enough money to cover the Washington County Courthouse or Peters Council or Cannon McMillan football game or Peters Township football game, or that he just doesn't have enough money. And he has a lot more than we do, but that is our strength, and that's how we're going to survive. You know, in 1970, there were 1,200 family-owned newspapers in the United States, and dailies, and now there are about 145 family-owned, and there are lots of chains. Gannett is a fairly large business, but they run things very differently, and it's all bottom-line driven. And unfortunately, we don't really have to, you know, we don't have to do that much. We do have other shareholders. I have cousins and sisters that own just as many shares of stock as I do, and you know, but we our fathers wouldn't recognize what we, how we do.
Do you know, where do you print? I'm trying to get this vision in my mind because I've been in your building, the Observer Reporter, a couple of times, but where does the actual business take place, the printing? Do you print on site?
We print on site. We
Wow.
purchased a printing press in 1993 for about $4.2 million, and the press runs, if all things go well, it runs 2 hours a day. And so there's really not a justifiable reason to buy a printing press, but we do everything. We print the Observer and we print the Almanac on site in Washington.
And you employ how many?
About 235 people. That includes the Almanac, and it includes our staff in Greene County, full and part-time.
It doesn't include the people who deliver the paper.
Right.
Right.
They're independent contractors.
Okay.
Or a good number of them are independent contractors.
How are you competing with the internet? I mean, I know, in fact, my son-in-law sells printing, big printing internationally. And I know that, you know, people tell him, well, there's less and less people now doing print because more people go into the internet.
Well, we are part of the internet, and OR Online is really a big and important part of what we're doing. And as time goes along, it will become a more and more important part of what we're doing. We're trying to create two products now. One, a print product, a newspaper, the traditional newspaper.
See, frankly, you know, just as an aside here, my husband and I still prefer to pick that newspaper up. We still prefer to pick it up and sit and concentrate and read on it, not sit in front of a computer.
Well, and people my age generally do. But the people who are 30 years old and buying their houses for the first time, sending their kids to school for the first time, the people who are normally the ones who start buying a newspaper, they're not doing that these days. They're getting their news elsewhere. And so what we have to do is to reach those customers in the way they prefer to receive their news. That is the trend. And there's going to come a day when paper newspapers are a lot less of what we do. It's coming pretty fast.
There was, last week I spoke at a University of Pittsburgh function about the 200th anniversary, and in one of the articles in the paper talked about the oldest newspapers in the world and the reporter that have published continuously, and we are the 13th oldest continuously printed paper in the world.
You have to have a lot of pride in that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the shows that you have given the community what they want, and
it's truly remarkable, I think. But the oldest newspaper in the world, and I will butcher the name if I try to say it, is from Sweden. And a few years ago, they went 100% digital.
Whoa.
And so it is not printed at all now. And so as we struggle with, you know, a mature population, and you know, it used to be as soon as you got married and had children, you sort of automatically bought the newspaper.
You had a newspaper, right?
But that really doesn't fit anymore. But you know, I can look at the Observer Reporter website on my iPhone, and it's just truly amazing. And you know, my father and my uncle, who ran the business from the 50s, mid-50s up until 2002, truly wouldn't recognize some of the things that we do. It's just so completely different.
And if people want to see you online, can you tell us again what your website is? How do they get online?
It's www.observer-reporter.com.
Okay.
Where they can type in OR Online and Google us that way.
Okay.
Or you could go to thealmanac.net.
Yes.
Okay, and that's on there too.
Yes.
Okay, that's
it's a little different for the Almanac. It's a weekly newspaper, and it's.
As I was saying, though, we're creating two different products, and the product online is very different from a newspaper. A lot of it is live news. A lot of it is video and audio and interaction with the public. Chatting and blogs and commenting on stories. So it's really quite a different thing, and we are trying very hard to separate those two so that they're entirely not a mirror image of each other, but two entirely separate products.
Well, you're going to two different audiences.
That's correct.
So you have to serve that audience. You do have to serve.
I mean, the big question is, we are a business, and how do you make money? doing
exactly.
that.
I mean, that's you know, that's our society is to, you know, is to work hard and to be successful and make money. Some of the pictures coming up, and we aren't narrating them, but some of the pictures are pretty exceptional when you look back at the history of Washington County. I'd like to run some of that other video, but we don't know where to start now because we ran part of it in the other parts. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have been in this business from the time that it was what they called hot metal to now when we're converting to
What's
digital.
hot metal?
Hot metal was the process that we used for 100 years where molten metal was formed into lines of type, and each line of type was formed into a column of type. Impressions were made. More molten metal was poured to make the press plates. Everything was, it was a factory, a hot, noisy, dangerous factory when I began the business in 1971.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds like that would be back in the 17 or 1800s, doesn't it?
But the machines used to produce that were called linotype machines because they could produce one line of type per minute, and that was a line of type. And it was one column wide. And in the early 80s, when we got our first computer system, and then in the late 80s, when we upgraded to computers with lasers, you can print an entire page with full color photos. It takes 90 seconds to print the first page and 60 seconds to print every page thereafter. So a little bit different in terms of technology.
It's crazy. I remember 20 years ago we were sitting around thinking about, do you think they could ever digitize photography and we could get rid of these chemicals? And we said, yeah, theoretically it's possible, but it would take a computer the size of this room to store all the information contained in one color photograph. And to think that that was 20, 25 years ago that we were talking about that and how far we've come since then.
Do you have any affiliation or relationship with W&J, with Washington Jefferson University?
Well,
I don't know why I'm asking that. I'm just thinking of your geographically, yes. So.
Well, I graduated from W&J, and we print the Red and Black, the newspaper, the student newspaper. In fact, Dale Lally, who has a show on the station, a sports show, is the advisor for the Red and Black.
Oh,
so, yeah, we have a real close relationship with the college.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather graduated there. My wife graduated from W&J. And
Washington has everything. Washington has everything they need. I mean, it has a hospital. It has a county seat. It has a wonderful college where I think it's 95 or 97% of the students go on to law or medicine. It's just
remarkable.
Huge. And you know, I wish you continued success. 200 years. I wish you 200 more. Of course, we won't be talking about it in 200 years.
It won't be my problem.
But I do want to take a moment. If we could take that, can you grab that?
Sure.
Please, Park. Thank you. I'd like to put this in the camera again. If anybody's interested in this book, this historic book of the Observer Reporter and all the photographs, and a DVD is included. You can get online and take a look at this. And I also want to ask people in Peters Township, when you're looking for a service or a business something that you need, shop in Peters Township. Use this book. It's good for all of us. Keep our business local. Thank you very much. Thank you both for taking your time. It's been very interesting.
Appreciate the
see you next time.
opportunity.
Thank you.